The financial needs of a business go beyond tax and attest services. That's why CTBK goes beyond accounting services and offers outsourced solutions through their affiliation with CFO Solutions Plus. These additional services allow clients to focus on their operational and long-term strategic goals. Trust CTBK's outsourced solutions to provide cost-effective, value-added financial services tailored to your company's needs. Call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400. Or go to ctbk.com to learn more about CTBK's outsourced solutions. Welcome back to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. Back from a little holiday break, which was, well, impacted by Bill's road game and having to drive out there, and Jonah was unavailable for a little bit. So we just decided to take the holiday weekend.
I was available every day. I was available all of the days we didn't podcast. I don't celebrate Christmas, so you can't use that as an excuse.
No, but I don't want to talk about your personal life. I don't want to make any announcements. You can say.
Well, I'll tell everybody I tested positive for coronavirus on Friday, but let's see. I was going to text you to say, don't use this as an excuse not to podcast, but I decided not to be a jerk about it, so I didn't.
I see. Well, we're back with a vengeance because Tim Graham and Friends is loaded with extra Fs. As you, if you're watching, you see down in your lower left panel, CBS This Morning Saturday co-host Jeff Glor is joining us. And by request of Jeff Glor, Matthew Fairburn of The Athletic is back for the first time since he left. And it was actual criteria of Jeff's appearance. He said, not unless Matthew Fairburn's on also. I think Jeff has some things that he wants to discuss regarding the Bills' victory over the Patriots on Sunday. But welcome, guys. Thanks everybody for coming on.
Well, I can't go after Jonah since he had COVID. And I mean, I'm always going to go after you, but I figure Matthew should come on to speak to his new beat and everything. He's doing a great job. I hate to say, but of course he is. And I noticed he filed way before you on Sunday.
I even dragged my feet a little bit because, Tim and I were going to go out for a beer after the game. So I was like, I guess I'll read through this a few more times, add a few more things. I mean, I was the last New England reporter to leave, and those Buffalo guys were all still over there, hemming and hawing over their pros. So, hard work, lack of efficiency, some mix of the two. I'm not sure.
It comes more easily for some than others. And I just think it's funny that Jeff Glor, successor to Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, pays so close attention to the work at The Athletic that he looks at timestamps or notices the timestamps of when the Bills and Patriots reporters file. But no mention, at least in the texts yet, that because Matthew filed ahead of me, I plagiarized him. We had virtually identical leads.
That doesn't surprise me. And it wasn't just that he filed so far in advance of you. It was also that his story was so much more well-rounded and complete that's just, I don't know what else to say.
And unbiased.
Yes.
This is nice. I was worried that I had lost my F status, which maybe I had, but clearly I haven't lost it with Jeff, which is good.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was going to be the result of Matthew appearing on Tim Graham and Friends, or else I wouldn't have bothered to tell him that you insisted, Jeff. But and I also say it's a kick too that you are such a close reader that you used a word that I kind of made up in my previous story and applied it to a tweet today. That's how closely you read. So you can try to kick me in the balls all you want, but I know that you read every word I write, whether you hate it or not.
I do. It's true. I Googled that word and it actually there's a definition of it. So I don't know if you invented it, but it was good.
Well, no, I didn't invent it.
The word is fantabulous, by the way, right?
Yeah. It's what do you call that? a portmanteau when you slam two words together and, like ginormous.
Or slobberknock.
Slobberknock is again, very impressed and flattered. Slobberknock is a vestige of my boxing coverage days. You would actually see Slobberknock in Ring Magazine about 12 times an issue. But for people who actually, cover regular sports, it is a rarity. I have used it several times in my career, but need to spread it out a little bit. It's a great word.
It's a fantastic word. A fantabulous word.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll start with you, Jeff. The state of your Buffalo Bills. Let's go from the loss on Monday night to the Patriots, as freaky as it was on 4 weeks ago, and the Bills' recovery from being down and out, left for dead.
Yeah.
Even listening to their own radio program with their own team employees on Thursday and Friday, Steve Tasker and Chris Brown were all but throwing dirt on their grave.
See, this is why we should have podcasted, because I would have balanced that discussion a little bit.
I didn't feel like it. I had Christmas. You don't celebrate Christmas. And Christmas is way more important than anything that any other religion can put in front of me. And I'm sorry, Jonah. We can have this discussion off camera if you'd like, or we can get into it right now.
Why not?
I'll leave that up to you,
Well,
fella.
you were a religion major in college, I think. So I don't know if I can have these religious back and forth.
I was?
I thought you said that at the time. Or
No, absolutely. You got me confused with somebody else.
Oh.
I am no theologian, sir. But Jeff, what do you feel about your Bills now here in the span of a month? And can you take us back to however you were feeling heading into this game?
I wasn't feeling bad heading into this game. I was feeling bad talking about the last 6 weeks in general. The thing I think I keep coming back to is that they're 0-5 in these one-score games, and whatever. If you feel like those one-score games should have been somehow split, or you end up 500 in those games, it's a different story. But it's, we are where we are right now. I also just keep, I mean, obviously wanted to have more success in this, but I thought last year going into this year, it felt a little like 88 going into 89 a little bit, where they really sort of broke through in 88 and then had that really difficult season in 89 with the bickering Bills, and then barely made the playoffs and then lost in the first round. So I was worried that this year was going to be like that. I wouldn't say they're bickering this year, but they've had, I think, more challenges than we think. And I certainly hope they win a playoff game in multiple ones at that. But, who knows? I do think that future-wise, we're still, because we seem to be set at that most important position, that we're set for a long time. So I'm encouraged by that. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs now. I don't know. I mean, I think it's unlikely they miss it at this point, but,
they're going to make the playoffs.
The game on Sunday was, I mean, it was sort of amazing to me how well Allen was playing and the team in general, that New England was still in it. At the end, if he had thrown that interception, was the beginning of that last drive. I mean, New England could have won the game, which seems crazy given how well Buffalo played. But yeah, we were watching, and I think I wouldn't want to play the Bills in the playoffs.
That first set of downs after the Patriots closed it to 5 in the fourth quarter, the Bills get the ball back. Josh Allen throws what could have been a pick six. I think it would have been a really difficult catch for J.C. Jackson, but one that he probably makes more times than not. And he has nothing. What's that, Matthew?
He dropped one in the end zone earlier in the game too. So
right. There's that.
He calls himself Mr. INT and dropped a couple of them.
Right. So he should,
Sunday.
yeah, if he wants to live up to his own reputation, that should have been a pick six. And then 2 plays later, the Bills have 3rd and 10 and convert to Isaiah McKenzie for a gain of 17. So right then, so even without that JC Jackson drop, even with the JC Jackson drop, the Patriots still had a really good opportunity to get the Bills off the field right then and come back and get another touchdown. But Josh Allen just willed them down the field behind that offensive line that is, these guys, they're just being moved around. And while they have had weak moments, Sunday certainly wasn't one of them. And I think that going into the game, if you would have told me that they were going to lose Ike Butker in the second quarter, then you would think, well, here's an implosion on the way. But really incredible performance, and the type of performance that I think really cements Josh Allen as a leader. He didn't put the cape on. He raised everyone around him.
Yeah.
And which is, I think, super encouraging. Now, does that mean he does it on a weekly basis, or do we just see this every now and then? Probably the latter, but an incredibly encouraging performance if you're a Bills fan, especially after real disappointments.
I think, yes. I think he raised everyone else around him for all the game, basically, but it's willed them in the fourth quarter. And, right now, how many quarterbacks in the league can will their team to victory like that? It's Allen, it's Rodgers, I guess Brady. I don't know who else. I'm sure there's others, but
Mahomes probably can do it.
Mahomes.
Lamar Jackson, if healthy,
Jackson,
but he's not healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of these guys come with a lot of asterisks.
Dak Prescott. There's other good quarterbacks.
But in the AFC, to Jeff's point, there's a couple. There's Mahomes and there's Allen. And, if Lamar Jackson and the Ravens get there, Herbert's good, Burrow's good, but they're young. So, I mean, the Bills have the quarterback upper hand in almost every game they play against an AFC opponent, probably other than when they play the Chiefs. And that's, I think was on Sunday, the major story. You talk about it being a 5-point game right at the end, and Josh Allen basically played a perfect game. He had a few mistakes that could have went the other way, a couple of dropped interceptions. He didn't hit every throw, but that is as good as you get from Josh Allen right there. I mean, it was a masterful quarterback performance, and still, the Patriots hung around. And so I think it shows that when he does that, they can beat just about anybody, and not many teams have a quarterback that can do that for them.
What do we think the danger is of the Bills slipping here in either of these next two games? They have the Atlanta Falcons and New York Jets. Both of them are home. The Falcons have a handful of wins, but they're a bad team. The Jets are an awful team, but the Bills also lost to Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars. They've had their moments, or even a bad half against a team that they should have steamrolled, slow starts, all that type of stuff. I don't know. I'm personally encouraged by the way that they showed their moxie, for lack of a better term, against the Patriots with all the problems that they had, particularly on offense, all the players that were missing, or even Star Latuli's, mysterious absence again. That there's something that maybe that the tip has been sharpened enough that they don't take things for granted anymore. Because if you can win with Ryan Bates and Isaiah McKenzie and I don't know, insert whomever, Cody Ford's out. But yeah, if you can win with these guys, make it. Jake Kumaro is in the starting lineup. Reggie Gilliam caught a pass. If you can win with these guys, then that seems to me that maybe they've got their heads straight.
I hope so, and I think so. I don't think they'll look past it. I don't think the fans should either. I mean, Atlanta's still got Matt Ryan, and so the offensive line was struggled so bad for a while, and then looked so good on Sunday. I don't know what happened.
Well,
it was an interesting game. The Patriots actually put a fair amount of pressure on Josh Allen. If you look at the numbers, he was technically under pressure on 40% of his dropbacks, which seems like it was a little bit high to me, but they weren't they didn't sack him once. They weren't finishing plays. And I think some of that had to do with how they were rushing, trying to contain Josh Allen a little bit more than maybe going right at him. They did devote a little extra attention at times to Matthew Judon, and I think that helped because he's the one that's been finishing a lot of those plays. But
only
Kyle
4
Van Noy,
quarterback hits, by the way. No sacks, but only 4 quarterback hits, and no Patriots defender had more than 1. So,
yeah, they had Van Noy had 6 pressures, Barmore had 6 pressures, but they weren't as big an impact, right? He was getting out of the way of it. He was buying time. He had 23 throws where he took 3 seconds or more to throw it, which is by far the most he's had all year. And usually in the past, that's been a bad thing. If Josh Allen holds on to the ball that long, it's a bad thing. At least in 2020, he was in his best rhythm when he was getting rid of the ball on time, quickly to Diggs, Brown, Beasley, the whole thing. But that was why he was so good on Sunday. He bought time and was super patient when he had the time, hit the checkdowns and everything else. So as it was such a weird game from a pressure standpoint, because if you just look at the pressure rate, you'd say the Patriots were all over them, but Josh Allen was clearly buying extra time. And those 23 throws, he completed 16 of them for, over a third of his yards. And that doesn't count the times that he took off and got a little bit extra. And, he had 64 rushing yards in this game too. So kind of a nightmare game for the Patriots front 7 trying to contain him, because he was escaping and using both his, supreme athleticism, but also just the subtle pocket movement that you see veteran quarterbacks have as they go through their careers. And, it was definitely a frustrating game for New England's front 7.
And 2 things that I think are small factors, but probably were factors. Cody Ford not being out there seems to have a positive effect on the Bills' offensive line playing around him. And Zach Moss is better at blitz pickup than Matt Breida, and so having him out there a little bit more helps the pass blocking, I think, somewhat.
Ryan Bates is decent too. I wrote about him in the offseason and thought he should have a home somewhere on that offensive line. And, it's funny, Tim mentioned, Ike Butker going down and thinking it could have gotten really ugly when that happened. And you would probably even think at the beginning of the year, if somebody told you, look, it's going to get ugly if Ike Butker goes down, you'd be like, why the hell is Ike Butker in there? I mean, that was not the plan when they put together the offensive line. I know he competed in camp and stuff and played well at times last year, but Bates was, has hung around on that line for a while. When they traded for him a couple of years ago, just kind of a utility man back there. But I think a lot of credit goes to Josh Allen and the way that he buys time, recognizes pressure, and the Patriots coverage wasn't holding up on the back end either. So even when they were getting close, Allen was finding somebody or throwing the ball away. He was really smart. He was really patient and really smart. I think that's why a lot of Bills fans are justifiably giddy over the performances. He's had huge games before, right? He's had better stat lines than he had on Sunday, but has he ever handled a game that well between the ears, mentally, emotionally, against such a good, smart defensive game planner? He probably hasn't in that type of spot. And I think that's why people are so excited.
I don't think so. He had 0 of those, what, Tim, you call them the sugar rush moments, whatever, right? Like
hero ball, whatever it is. Yeah.
And he's addressed those. I mean, he's talked about those, that he sometimes just gets, there were 0 on Sunday.
I do wonder how much different it would
calm.
be if JC Jackson catches that pass. How much different is because that was a bad throw. I don't know why it was a bad throw. Was it inaccurate? Were he and Diggs not on the same page? But that was the type of day it was for the Patriots. He was making so few mistakes that those ones stood out so much as missed opportunities for New England. It was like, you better capitalize, because he's not hitting you in the hands like he was a couple of years ago, every other throw. You need to take advantage of the 1 or 2 times that either he and his receivers aren't on the same page or he misfires. I don't know which that one was. Diggs was pretty vocal afterwards, so I think maybe they were a little bit not on the same page. But yeah, I mean, it would be a little, if one of those gets caught, there might be some panic moments. The national narrative of Josh Allen would change, but that's the fine line. That pass gets dropped and he doesn't unravel. He doesn't, have a sugar high moment. He just settles down, hits a 3rd down and 10, made that 4th down run, hit another 3rd down and 10 to Diggs. It was a perfect drive after that drop.
I think we would have learned a lot about Josh Allen had he thrown a pick 6 right there, because granted, he's prone to those frenzied moments where, I even think back to the Rams game last year where he just loses it. He loses his composure for a series or two and then just finds it again. It would be interesting to see how quickly he would have shaken that off, because he is known to do that late in games, to just all of a sudden find the zone where he hasn't had it for 3 quarters. And I'm talking not just this year, but even when he was younger, he just had this really strange ability to just tranquility, serenity now type stuff, and just shrug it off like it didn't matter. And had we seen that, I think that would have been really impressive, but I'm sure the Bills are thankful they didn't have to worry about it.
There was plenty of time left too. Had he thrown the interception,
About
and the
7
Patriots
minutes
go
left.
down and score. It wasn't, game over. It was, they would have had to have scored the touchdown, and who knows how much time would have been left, but it would have been plenty. I think Josh Allen only needs about, 45 seconds, it seems like, to get down the field when he's really feeling it.
Now, so if the Dolphins go in and who've now won 7 games after losing 7 games, first team in NFL history to do that. If the Dolphins beat the Titans, it is in Tennessee, so it's tough, but Tennessee's banged up. If the Dolphins beat Tennessee, and then the Dolphins somehow are able to beat New England in New England, so closing out the season, winning 9 games in a row, they not only make the playoffs, but would they also then knock the Patriots out of the playoffs?
It's possible that they would knock the Patriots out of the playoffs, but it would depend on, assuming the Patriots win against the Jaguars. As I understand the math, all they would need is either the Dolphins or the Raiders to lose one of their final 2 games. So that would be either, so if they lose to the Dolphins, as you laid out, like Dolphins win out, finish 10-7. The Ravens can finish 10-7. The Chargers can finish 10-7, but the Patriots are guaranteed to have the tiebreaker over both of them. They are not guaranteed to have it over Vegas, although it's still possible that Vegas could win out. And I think there's a common games situation. So they would need the Raiders to lose. It would not be good if they lost to the Dolphins. If the Dolphins win this weekend and the Raiders win this weekend, the Patriots are going to be playing for a lot against the Dolphins, but
Jeff,
the Raiders do have a tough schedule.
Are you indicating that it's not just enough that the Bills get into the playoffs? You want the Patriots to not make it?
He's scared to see him again.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You're perceptive, Tim, as usual. Yes, no, that would be, I may or may not enjoy that, but no. Would I be worried about playing the Patriots again in the playoffs? No. Am I worried about playing Indianapolis? Yes. Other teams, I think Indy would be the biggest. I mean, obviously the Chiefs, but you're not going to meet the Chiefs if they get there until at least the second round. So
I think the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, I don't know that I'd want to play them just because there's so much X factor variable involved there. But yeah, I think that there are some opponents out there that look a lot tidier of an opponent. Let's put it this way, Jeff, who would you want to play of the teams that look like they're going to make the playoffs? Who would you, because the Bills are not going to get that first round bye that a lot of people thought after that Kansas City game seemed like it was a fait accompli, and the Bills were the Super Bowl favorites and Josh Allen was the MVP favorite. And then all of a sudden things fell apart. They're going to have to play that game against the Jets. They're not going to be able just to afford to arrest everybody against the Jets, probably. So you want that soft opponent in the first round. Who would you want?
I mean, I'm not saying the Patriots are soft, but I would feel somewhat confident. I think this time, if they were playing them in Orchard Park, as long as the winds aren't gusting at 87 miles an hour,
It might
You know,
be.
it may be, yeah, Chargers. I don't know. I mean, I think the only team that really is scary, just not only just based on the result of what happened last time, but just in general is, having Taylor. I mean, the Titans don't have Derrick Henry anymore, so I'd say the Titans if they had Derrick Henry, but I think the Colts I think they could do it against the Colts because hopefully they've learned, but I think the Colts, just because of Taylor almost entirely, I'm not sure anybody wants to play them right now.
Carson Wentz just went on the COVID list today, and as an unvaccinated player, he's going to miss some time. So the Colts now are in an interesting spot. It's actually a tough break for the Patriots because the Colts play the Raiders, and they need the Raiders to lose. And so I think the Colts playoff spot is pretty safe, but it's not locked up. It's not, not even close, really. So that's a tough, spot for
In this
Wentz to put his
bizarro
team in.
2021 season, there's actually a weird, probably relief for some people to get COVID right now. I'm sure that the Chiefs can at least look at it and say, well, we know we're not going to have to worry about losing Kelsey in the playoffs. Or maybe if the Colts feel that they have things in hand, well, Wentz, who is very publicly unvaccinated, we don't have to worry about losing him in the playoffs. So it's kind of strange that way, although, and I don't want to go on too long of a tangent here, but some people getting COVID allows people like Isaiah McKenzie to step up and show, well, maybe when we reevaluate this roster at the end of the season, we don't need some of these other people. So I don't know. There's like there's like 6 thoughts in what I just said there, but COVID has this jumbled up. It's not just about losing a guy. There's so many different ways you can play it out in terms of the playoffs or roster building or decisions that you need to make that you can learn from your top players going on the COVID list.
But if you're vaccinated now, you don't have to test, right?
Not unless you show symptoms, which is sort of a honor system type of deal that they're on. And you can get back quicker if you're vaccinated and you're asymptomatic when you do test, because you could also just want to test. And I think some guys probably will be in that boat. Anybody who, has kids at home or, family members that live with them that they're worried about, even if you're vaccinated, you might want to test to make sure you're not carrying it. But yeah, they can get back.
Testing.
There's like spot testing for certain, close contacts, I think. And they've gotten a little looser with the testing, but it's not as if, they had a record number of players go on the list yesterday. It seems like they're setting a new record weekly, and the NFL doesn't seem to have any interest in pausing the season or doing what the NHL has done. So they're plowing forward as they did last year, as they boasted at the end of the season, didn't cancel any games. As there was a practice squad wide receiver playing quarterback for one team, a very proud accomplishment of the NFL. So I don't think anything's going to change this season when, 100 players go on the list one week. It's like, how many practice squad call-ups did the Saints have last night? I think it was 12. It's like, they had their 4th string quarterback in there, but
we make fun of the NHL for having the emergency goalie stationed in every city just in case, and how, Bush League that is, that the Toronto Maple Leafs have their minor league practice goalie who's a nearby accountant, and he played a game and won for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like, he's even doing it for the other team. The NFL maybe is going to need to do that, and not even just for COVID, but the Bills catching a break when Carolina's kicker goes down before the game. If there's just going to be a kicker in town who can be the emergency call up, that seems to be that the NFL is just like, whatever, we'll just put a bunch of players out there on the field, give them a jersey, and we need a result. Vegas needs a result. We can't take these games off the board. There's been too much money wagered on them.
The NFL seems to be inching. They just keep going a little farther of like, I bet you'll still watch. I bet you'll still watch. Yeah, we'll add another game to the schedule. I bet you'll still watch. We'll put it on Tuesday night at 5:00. I bet you'll still watch. We'll make Ian Book play this game, because Taysom Hill goes on the list on Friday, and sure enough, people will still watch. It's that's the nature of it. So
The
that's
NFL is considering the 5-day CDC relaxed quarantine now.
Yeah, I
So
thought they were
there's-
changing that today, actually.
Well, that could have happened. I was writing a story today, but I saw that they were considering it, so that may be.
I think Tim made an interesting point in that
I
if we're
did?
trending towards,
I did.
it was one of the 6 points you made at once. The other 5, I'm going to blow past. But you know, if everybody, it does seem like this Omicron variant is going to catch up with most everybody at some point, or at least our various levels of vaccines and boosters and natural immunity don't work, and it's going to spread to a lot of people and a lot of athletes. If you look at like the NBA, I think the percentage of NBA players who are in protocols or have tested positive is higher than what we're seeing in the NHL or the NFL so far. And the NHL's on pause. So if you're a team like the Bills and your quarterback, you'd rather him get it now and be out for a game or two that's more winnable in the regular season than 2 weeks from now. Maybe this wave is over in 2 weeks. And I don't know if you really want to tempt fate and make that happen, but it wouldn't be the worst. It wouldn't be a disaster scenario if Josh Allen, for example, showed up on the COVID list tomorrow.
Put him in a room with Cole Beasley and crank up the temperature to 96, and you're not allowed to come out until you test positive.
Or they can wrestle. They probably got some mats in that facility.
Well, Sean
the
McDermott's
rule?
basement.
90. Is it 90?
Right, 'cause then you can't
you test
test positive
positive,
again.
you don't need to test. You
Yeah,
don't
so-
need to test in the NFL.
Yeah, then you get 90, and then 90 days, you got a free pass.
So that's
hall
where, you know, yeah, I guess it's better now than, I mean, in theory, right? You know, if you get a pretty severe case, I don't think there's any ideal time to have that. You know, Deion Dawkins, his situation could happen. You know, John Feliciano apparently had to go to the hospital.
Well, the Tim Graham version would have done it.
Right.
I
You know,
couldn't, I
mean,
wasn't running, and I wasn't able to get out of bed for 4 or 5 days. So you lose weight, you atrophy a little bit, you lose strength, all that stuff.
it was an issue for
Stop
Lamar
shaving.
Jackson a little bit last year.
The
What's
big,
the deal with Feliciano, by the way?
It's not my
Um,
jurisdiction. It's a load.
um,
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean like
he claims to be vaccinated. But I think there's also some there is some belief from knowledgeable people that even if healthy, he might not have returned to the starting lineup. So the one game that he did get back, and he only played 5 special team snaps. Now, was that going to be a situation like Deion Dawkins, where they were going to play him back into, you know, Deion Dawkins obviously goes into the game when Ike Bucker goes down, kind of an emergency situation. But before that game on Sunday, Deion Dawkins was going through the pregame routine of a practice squad player. He was doing pretty heavy duty warm-ups, conditioning type stuff. He was out, like, you know, they worked him because the expectation was he wasn't going to play. So he stood there on call just in case, and in case happened. So was what was going to happen with Feliciano and his one game back? Well, we don't know because he only lasted that one game before he tested positive. But there is some acrimony, I think, between Feliciano and the team regarding his status on that offensive line.
More acrimony than there is between the team and Star.
Well, okay, so you're talking about a personal matter. We don't know what it is that Star Lotulelei has been out. Sean McDermott was asked about it on Monday, said he had nothing to share with us regarding that. He could have said, yeah, he's back with the team, but he didn't. I don't want to speculate. I'll just lay out some facts and think that, because I don't know, but here is somebody who obviously was afraid enough of COVID last year to opt out. He did not get vaccinated. He has said that it's for health reasons. He has been on the COVID list, and now a COVID outbreak starts happening around the NFL, and he is not with the team. So those are facts. I mean, right? I mean, Matthew, double check me on that. As somebody who covered the team on a day-to-day basis, you know Because some of the times I catch it from a distance and I'm reading reporting, but right? That's correct.
That's all
As I
correct.
understand it,
Yeah.
I wasn't here for all of that, but I know
And
he
he had a
was.
heart condition coming out of college that was caused by a virus.
Yes.
And there's some debate as to whether or not that's legitimate, but legitimate enough that the Bills could have.
No, he tested for that at the combine.
No, I mean, as to whether or not a vaccine would impact that.
Oh, okay.
It does it, I don't know. But it seems as though it's all within the under the large and vague blanket of COVID, but this is listed as a personal matter. So
Has any player opted
don't
out
know.
again? Because I know they're putting that option.
They had it was like a 48-hour window and
that's
unpaid. It was an unpaid situation, I believe. But so he stands to make a lot of money by continuing to play or continuing to be on the roster. And they're locked into him for next year too, because of the opt-out rules. Kicked his contract down a year, and they would have a lot of dead money if they cut him next year. So he's on the team.
Jeff, anything else you want to talk about before we start plugging all the various features you're working on for CBS This Morning Saturday?
Yes, just looking for some sort of schadenfreude opening here, New England wise. I mean, like Matthew, so generally speaking, Fairburn, the feeling in New England now is what? And not just about the team this year, but like moving forward.
I think a lot of, I don't know, when people ask me that, I always wonder, are you talking like fans or like a mixture of fan and media reaction? It can be very different at times. The media reaction and the fan reaction, or in the building, or, all those things. But I would say, generally speaking, discerning fans recognize that Josh Allen is a problem that isn't going away. And they still think, what I find interesting about these two games that were played in a span of 20 days is how strong the emotional swings were from fans, media on both sides, where after the Bills lost, as Tim mentioned, going into this game, there were people that were, wondering about their season and everything else. These two teams are still sitting there with identical records and a season split in their series. So I think there was a little bit of a reality check the last 2 weeks, not just the Bills game, but the Colts loss as well, about what this 2021 Patriots team is with a rookie quarterback. And that's probably not a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Weirder things have happened, but a rookie quarterback has never gone to the Super Bowl. And I think people got a little drunk on the 7-game winning streak, and we're feeling pretty good about, this is 2001 all over again. But it's starting to, seem like it's, crashing down to earth a little bit. It's been a weird NFL season, though. So who knows in a couple of weeks who the hot, healthy team is. I just think people realize the limitations with a rookie quarterback. This rookie quarterback in general is starting to not really hit a wall, but he's having some typical rookie games that really we hadn't seen until that Colts game. So yeah, there's that piece of it about what this team is. And then there's the piece of looking across the division and realizing while the Bills are beatable, I think everybody thinks that because of what happened a few weeks ago. The fact that they have that guy, that they have Josh Allen, I think people recognize that's a problem, because it's a problem because of what happened on Sunday. It's a problem because even in a game where the Patriots moved the ball fine, their running game, worked again. Their defense, let them down a little bit, but a lot of that just had to do with Josh Allen being spectacular. And that's a problem that is going to persist for years. So yeah, it's some mixed emotions, I think, but the more realistic people around here, I think, recognized all along that they were ahead of schedule slightly. They were, probably out over their skis a little bit, and, got brought back down to earth the last couple of weeks. But who knows? They're still right there in the mix. They're still, 96% to make the playoffs or something, according to 538. So I don't know. It feels like a rivalry again, though. I will say that there's a lot of people on both sides, supercharged emotionally every time these two teams play. And I think players and coaches on both sides are included in that. So to me, it's been fun to cover both games here in such a close period of time, because it starts to feel like a rivalry, and it hasn't felt that way. I don't know, probably 20 plus years.
Yep.
Jeff Glor from CBS This Morning Saturday has a story coming up on the history of the wing in about 3 weeks or so, and he spent some time in Western New York to track down that story. And what did you as a native Western New Yorker, as a Kenmore East High alum, as someone who's had all the great wings, what did you learn about the wing that you didn't already know?
Oh, I've learned a lot. You're going to have to watch to see some of it, but more about the history of it. Chicken wings have been around forever, but how they came to be marketed, right?
Were they before the egg?
Good. Just how they came to be marketed, how they marketed, and how Frank and Teresa Bellissimo. I mean, we've all heard about the Anchor Bar, but the story of how, and there's people who compete with the Anchor Bar too and say, listen, we were doing chicken wings before them, and that is true. I don't know if they were doing it in the exact way that the Bellissimos were doing it in, and then they certainly had some of the savvy to market it that certain way and really put it on the map. And then, and there's competitors who say that our wings are better or more famous, like Duff's and many others. But then how it sort of, just became this Western New York, and was this Western New York institution, and still is in the 80s. And, so many of the world's wings were being consumed in Buffalo in the 80s. And then the Bills went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, and national media descends, and they're like, what are we going to talk about besides the Bills? And they're like, food, and we'll talk about wings. And so that's in part where it really took off, around the country, and now everybody knows wings. And the Bills' success in the late 80s, early 90s played a huge role in that. And so we'll talk about some of that, and also about some of the unending wing disputes that still take place. I know this becomes cliche as well, but the whole ranch and blue cheese part of it, there's some interesting parts to that too, and where sort of wing culture has gone.
Here's where I stand. Jonah and I, we've had this discussion a handful of times. I think it's ridiculous that you can put whatever you want on the wing when you're making the wing, because they'll take anything.
Yep.
Dry rub, hot, wet thing, this, that, whatever spice you want to put on there.
Parmesan.
I had a salt and pepper wing at Adolph's First Ward Tavern recently, which is really good. What I say, salt and vinegar also. They're another kind of, non-traditional wing. That's fine. But you can't dip it in whatever the hell you want. It's got to come out of the kitchen that way. I've never understood that argument. I am pro-choice.
Jeff, does your story at all get into the price hike on wings? Because the last time I was in Buffalo, 3 weeks ago, whenever that game was, I think it was like $31 for 20 wings at Bar-Bill. Worth it, but it was more expensive than I remembered.
It absolutely is. And I remember paying 10 cents for a wing and 25 cents for a draft, years ago, and you can't get that anymore. So the shortages of wings have been a problem, which is why a lot of people have shifted to boneless, which are not really, boneless wings are not really wings, and, thighs and other things. So yes, it's definitely an issue. there was one guy.
I think Jonah just had a spit take. Was that
I
a
was
cough
wondering
or was that a spit take? Was there something he said that made you
Yeah, it
spit
was
your
just
coffee up all
coffee
over
going
you?
down the wrong pipe. I wish there was a spit take. I'd like to
Oh,
spit
okay.
take this whole conversation that we're having these endless drunk debates about wings. This is going to be on the CBS News. All this talk about chicken wings.
Well, we're gonna do it in an artful, sophisticated manner, Jonah. I mean, of
Okay.
course, obviously, we elevate these things. We can take subjects that might be pedestrian in other places and we turn them into something special.
That's the journalism we're taught at Kenmore East, and I'm glad you're carrying that out nationwide.
That's right. That's right.
Jeff, let me ask this. This shouldn't be giving away a secret or picking sides. You're from town of Tonawanda. What is the best wing joint in the town of Tonawanda?
I mean, I still love Duff's.
Is that in the town of Tonawanda?
Yes, Duff's is in Amherst, though, right?
Yeah.
Duff's is it's technically in Amherst. So we used to always go. I mean, I haven't had wings in the town of Tonawanda in a long, long time. I'm not back there as much as I want to be. When we used to get wings and pizza, we got it from John and Mary's at the corner of Sheridan and Ashford. It's just right down the block. John and Mary's used to have on Monday nights. They had a $4.99 pizza, full pie, for $5.
Right on.
You
hear they're getting rid of the putt-putt over by there.
Are they really?
It was a huge, in fact, people have been trying to save it. It was one of the bigger stories of the summer.
Oh,
I'm not joking. As you can imagine how some stories just go viral, but they want to put something else there where the putt-putt is.
No, that's a travesty.
Are you all right with that?
Is it
No,
too
you're
late
not.
for Jeff to go in there and stop it with some journalism?
It wasn't the putt-putt that wasn't the mini golf that attracted me to that place. It was the video games and playing Golden Axe and everything else. Unlike his putt-putt used to have a thing on Saturday mornings where it was $20 from 9 a.m. to noon, and you got unlimited tokens and unlimited golf. And it was like an orgy for a kid, like a teenage kid in the 80s, going to putt-putt for $20, man. It was the only thing that rivaled it was Friday night's main event when like Hogan was in his prime. So those would be the best, and I'd be sorry to see putt-putt go. But
What if I was saying they were bulldozing it for a Loganberry factory? Would that be okay?
I like Loganberry.
A Loganberry sponge candy store.
Is that really what it is?
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay,
We're going
I'm
to
just
make
trying to
Jim's
see
Stakeout, but Jim
what would
Stakeout
be-
said it's not.
Oh, it's a Jim
suitable.
Stakeout. That's
No,
right.
they
They're
turned
going to
that
put
down.
I
I
think
don't know
that's.
why.
yeah.
All right.
I can't say I'm
Jim's
shocked.
Stakeout is pretty great.
I'm throwing a
There
lot
is
of
one down the block. They just want a new location.
throwing a lot of Tonawanda nostalgia at you here. Jeff, thanks for doing this. Let's plug a couple other stories. Actually, you have one coming up on Noah Hawley from Fargo, the TV series.
Yeah.
And he's done a bunch of other things. He has a book coming out in January. You saying?
He's got a big book coming out. It feels like sort of his attempt at the great American novel. It's a book called Anthem, released beginning of the year. Worth checking out.
Deep sea fishing. Tampa Bay Lightning coach John Cooper.
Yep.
And Secession star Brian Cox. And with this audience, I have to start that sentence out with Secession star Brian Cox, because Brian Cox obviously is somebody totally different. Do you mention the football player Brian Cox? Has he ever been? Does he know who that is? Could you help yourself?
That's a good question. I will try to get the Cox highlights or lowlights into that piece when we do it. No, he has a book coming out as well, and I think what we're trying to do, and so we just renamed actually the show to CBS Saturday Morning. So CBS has Sunday morning, now they have Saturday morning. And
I feel like such an idiot. Thanks for making me say it 3 times. Jesus.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to let you make as many mistakes as possible. So no, it's all good. It just happened, and I think that you know, on behalf of my colleagues, I mean, just the books and the music and the food and the films and the stuff that we're covering on the show. I mean, you're going to get hard news and topical news every Saturday, but the in-depth stories that we're doing and trying to do, we're working really hard on, and I think it's something you can't get anywhere else. So I'm really proud of the show, and I hope you guys check it out.
Saturday morning's main event. The best thing to come to Saturday morning since $20 all you can diddle the knobs at putt-putt.
That's new tagline. I love it. Thank you.
Do you come up with your story ideas? I guess what's the mix there? Because it's such a variety. You can't be an expert on all of this stuff possibly. So I'm sure they come to you with some of them, but I feel like you would have had a hand in wings, or because they know you're from Buffalo, maybe they're inspired to come up with things that you're going to be passionate about, to be able to do sports with John Cooper, and there's maybe no hotter show right now than Secession. To be able to do all these things have to be a blast, but to be able to pull off all these different angles, what's that process like, or the juggling act like with you and your producers?
It's mostly me and the producer that I work with most of the time, you know, coming up with these ideas, and you know, they trust, you know, our executive producer and the small team that's in charge, they trust us and they know what we do, and so they give us room to do these stories, which is really amazing. And you know, it's just a curiosity. Like you know, I read a little bit about John Cooper. You know, it's one of the stories, wanted to do that story. Wings actually got piggybacked on a different story we're doing on Parks and Frederick Olmsted, who played a huge role in Buffalo. And I'm like, why don't we shoot a second story there? Let's do it on Wings, and let's try to do it different and a story that people haven't done on Wings before. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a chance to, you know, like you guys do. I mean, it's you're on more beats, but it's a chance to learn about something completely new and just completely immerse yourself in it every single week. And so that's fun for me, because I don't have the patience or the focus for anything else.
Right. Well, I'm envious of that. That's one of my favorite things to do, you know, when as a takeout person, is to learn about something. And sometimes it's so much fun to learn about it and research it and do the interviews, that the actual, in my case, the writing of it becomes that's the drudgery. I just want to move on to the next thing. I want to learn about the next thing.
Yeah.
And so your ability to jump around on so many different topics is pretty cool. So Jeff Glor, co-host of CBS Saturday Morning.
That's it.
CBS Saturday Morning, CBS Saturday Morning, CBS Saturday Morning.
We're making moves.
Jeff, do you get to see detailed enough ratings to know how much Buffalo watches you? Because I know I have some family that always enjoys watching, in part because you're very good, but because you're from Buffalo. It's like a piece of home for them.
I don't know. I could get that information, but I don't know what the numbers are in Buffalo for the show. I think, but I hope they're good. I think they're good.
Well, they'll probably be huge this weekend after this appearance.
I'll bet they're not good. How about that? Because you know, Western New Yorkers are creatures of habit, and they're going to look for CBS This Morning Saturday on their guide, and they're going to see, what's this CBS Saturday Morning? I don't know what that is, and they're not going to watch.
Plus, you go up against Beat the Champ. There
you go.
Jeff, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, man.
You're a good sport for putting up with this bullshit, and you are way above this. And to lower yourself and humor me and Matthew and Jonah is it's always a treat.
Anytime, gentlemen. Matthew, thanks for coming on as well. Appreciate you joining. And Jonah, hope you're feeling better, buddy.
Thank you.
Based on what we saw earlier, I'm not so sure. Thank you for listening to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. My thanks again to Jeff Glor of CBS Saturday Morning and to Jonah Bronstein and Matthew Fairburn. CTBK is more than just a full-service accounting firm. They are one team with an innovative approach to accounting and rise to each new challenge with collaborative problem-solving skills. CTBK goes above and beyond by lending helping hands in the Buffalo and Niagara community through volunteer work and donations, and is partnered up with Victory Sports for 2020 and 2021 to keep kids in the community active. The professionals at CTBK are determined to help individuals and businesses succeed. Whether a large corporation, a small business, or somewhere in between, call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400, and see what CTBK's one-team approach can do for you.